manager that both those dudes are going to speak glowingly of. Chris Ballard, what a good general manager. And both those dudes that are going to speak glowingly of Frank Reich as a coach, they agree with me. They gave up a first-round pick hoping that he plays really good, not hoping that he plays really bad. So those guys may need to reassess their thought process, because at the end of the day, the general manager and the head coach sided with me and not with them. Jealousy and hate looks bad on both those guys. I'm glad that I got people like Diana on today's show that is and class, and a guy like Chris Canty, who just so happens to be another Baltimore Ravens defensive lineman that I have to do TV with. But at least Chris has got class and integrity and thoughtful responses instead of just built up anger from their past at Carson Wentz and myself. I'll end it with this.
Agreed with you.
From the years of 2017 to the years of 2019, there was only 2 quarterbacks in the NFL that threw for more than 20 touchdowns and less than 20 picks. One is Drew Brees. The other is Carson Wentz. So those guys can hate all they want. The results are what they are.
Yeah. And for the record, the other one who agreed with you was Torrey Smith, who was his teammate, the guy who was actually there and played with Carson Wentz. Chris, let me come to you. What is Wentz going to be this year in Indianapolis on that team with that coach? What's he going to be?
I think he's going to be a top 10 to 12 quarterback. If you look at the Colts last year, I mean, they had the talent to be able to support Phillip Rivers, a quarterback who was middle of the road. Rivers finished 19th in QBR. So Wentz certainly presents a lot more upside. The Colts have a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense, so it's all set up for him to have success. The only question is, can he get out of his own head? It's about the 6 inches between his ears. The confidence certainly was an issue last year. He led the league in sacks and picks, and he only played in 12 games. So certainly there's some work that has to be done. Frank Reich, Press Taylor, they got to get him back right. But the potential is there for Carson Wentz to be a top 10, 12 quarterback next season.
Diana, what are the people around the league saying now that the trade's about a week old?
Yeah, first off, Granny, when Orlovsky's singing my praises, try to tell Pete behind the scenes there, don't be giving him a rap. I want to keep hearing all those glowing reviews. I've had some horrible takes on this show. I need some build-up. My confidence is really low. But here's what I can tell you. Look, I had Tampa Bay Bucks not even making the playoffs. I'm going to live with that one. That's going to be put on my grave one day. But look, the Carson Wentz situation in Indy, first thing I did was called around to players and coaches in that division to just get a sense, because I feel like none of us really know who Carson is. Is this a good move? Will this marriage with Frank Reich work the second time? And I got a very similar sentiment from a lot of different people, which is if he can get his confidence back, Carson's is in his head. And it was also pointed out to me that, look at this Colts offense, the run game has really become their strength. If Carson can go in there and just manage this, they're not going to make him ask to do too much. Just don't turn the ball over, and he can be successful in Indy. So I'm with Dan on that, just not as in love.
We'll see where it goes. We'll take a short break on that thought. Much more quarterback conversation as we continue. There's another one off the board to start, the 3 different quarterbacks. But you know what, Hembo? I'm accepting that as a correct answer, if only because I loved it, and judging from the reaction in my ear, everyone in the control room loved it as well. Meanwhile, let's go back to what Mel does for a living, and that is projecting these quarterbacks. He has got his latest mock draft 2.0 up on ESPN Plus right now, projecting trades for the first time ever, and this is how he sees it going. Again, a trade right up near the top, with the Falcons moving up a few spots with the Jets to take Zach Wilson, the quarterback, and then you see the other quarterbacks in there with Justin Fields at 7, Mac Jones at 8, and Trey Lance at 9. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that we see in the form of trades. So Mel, I want to come back to you and the whole group here, and let's sort of pin down one point. And let's use 2 quarterbacks in this draft as an example. Mac Jones and Justin Fields. They played each other in the national championship game, so we all got to see them. Justin Fields, it feels like, is what the NFL is becoming. He's the dynamic threat. He can run. He can do all those different things. Mac Jones is what the NFL was 20 years ago. How important is that? As teams are making their evaluations right now, how important a factor is that in where these guys are going to get drafted now and into the future?
Yeah, the dual threat quarterback is obviously what you want, Greeny, and people forget how great Justin Fields was in 2019 in a normal year. Okay? Olave broke that route off. It was an interception in the end zone. It wasn't on Fields. Okay? You think about this year. He didn't have Olave against Northwestern. He did struggle. Struggled against Indiana, but it was an interrupted season. Anything but a normal season. Played great against Trevor Lawrence in that semifinal game. So I think when you look back at 2019, people just don't realize how special Justin Fields was. He's going to run probably 4.4, 4.45. He's got all the tools, all the ability you want. He's a tremendous competitor, loves the game, studies the game. So this notion that Justin Fields is somewhere in the late first, early second round, people say, well, he didn't play like a first rounder, he's overrated. Go back, look at 2019, and you will see a guy should have been in line to maybe be the #1 pick overall. He's right there with Trevor coming out of high school. Even going into this year was kind of 1 and 1A. Justin Fields, because of what happened this year, hasn't dropped all the way down like some people may lead you to believe.
Talk about him, Danny, because he's a fascinating one. I agree. He's one who began the season maybe competing for the #1 pick, and now we see where he falls.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Mel said. Coming on shows because we could break stupid narratives. So a lot of the things that have been said about Justin Fields is like really struggles to process. No, he doesn't, guys. Watch tape. Okay, the biggest jump that he's going to have to take from college to the NFL is covered in college. Guys that are covered in college are guys that are open. He's going to have to build the comfort level of going, okay, that guy's covered in college, but shoot, that 1 foot of separation is wide open in the NFL. And so having the confidence of letting the ball go on a consistent basis in that realm is where he's going to have to make that jump. But we're talking about a guy that is exactly, I mean, if you're talking about all the traits physically and mentally that you want in a quarterback, Justin Fields has that. The only thing that I would say is he's deliberate. He's very deliberate with his feet, with his thought process, with his eyes, where he wants to go with the football. That will get sped up when he gets to the NFL. But the biggest development that he's going to have to make is realizing, okay, that guy that I didn't want to throw in college because he was covered, I have to because it's the NFL. And if you think he can get there, he's got all the talent in the world to be a stud at the position.
Chris Canty, you made your living making life miserable for guys like those. How important a factor is that mobility in pro football circa 2021?
Well, it's huge. I mean, this is the thing. You don't want to prepare for a quarterback that can use his legs to get out of trouble because he can extend it down. He can put pressure on the defense in ways that a pure pocket passer can't. But to Dan's point, with Justin Fields, it's going to come down to, can he throw with anticipation in the NFL? You can't wait until you see it and then execute the throw. You've got to be able to throw with the anticipation that the scheme is going to create that void in order to hit your receiver. So I think that's one of the things that we have to watch for with Justin Fields.
Meantime, Diana, let me come to you on another one of these picks. Well, go ahead.
Now, what I want to say is, to Chris's point, what Dan was saying, you got to throw in anticipation. He has to see guys open. I heard the same thing about Josh Allen. Heard the same thing about Justin Herbert. It's a scout's job to project. Right. So scouts are critiquing Fields on what they should be doing and they're not doing. If they got to see it, then they're not a scout that I want. And they got to scout with anticipation. They got to project what a player will be. They didn't do it with Josh Allen, because I heard the same criticism. They didn't do it with Justin. Oh, Tua's more NFL ready. Tua throws with better anticipation. Sam Darnold, the great one now, right? Everybody hates Sam Darnold. He threw with better anticipation. He was better than Josh Allen, who everybody was hating on at this same stage of that draft process. So I heard it with Josh, Justin, and now Justin. What's it with the J's? Josh, Justin, and now Justin. Nobody seems to like coming through the draft process because they don't throw with anticipation. Scout with anticipation. That might help these guys make better decisions long term.
Find yourself someone who cares about their job the way Mel Kiper cares about his. Diana, let me come to you quickly on one other topic here, because Mel does have the Niners moving up to take a quarterback. Now, their general manager, John Lynch, just yesterday in an interview said, Jimmy Garoppolo, I expect him to be our quarterback next year. So what gives in San Francisco?
Yeah, that's probably the boldest statement we've heard from John Lynch, but you could really play around with all the wording that they've used every single time they talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's still not the thing you want to hear if you want Jimmy Garoppolo staying in San Francisco, and that's, he is our guy. He's going nowhere. We are invested in him. We can win with Jimmy. You never hear that, because look at it this way. John Lynch can just go back after the draft, or if they decide to move on from Jimmy, and say, yeah, we changed our minds. No one's going to hold his feet to the fire on this. They don't need to. So the 49ers here, from I think we can all, it's been made very clear, they're not in love with Jimmy Garoppolo. So the table is always open for them to make decisions.
Okay, so we will see.